Hi, it's me again, Edric from Thirst. I'm still here with my stay-home hair, still here with my stay-home clothes. Just like you, I've been staying home, doing the right thing, being responsible, keeping safe distances from the rest of the world. And it's funny because we're on Thursday, and normally Thursday night before a long weekend has a certain special flavor, a certain special something about it. But this long weekend is going to be a little bit different because it's not like we're going to be doing that much different. We don't have to go to work anyway. We still are here at home regardless of whether we're working or not. It feels like we've lost something a little bit special in that. And it's this extended circuit breaker season, this extended lockdown season. Yesterday, and for those of you who didn't catch the video, just go catch it back in the archives. It was just posted yesterday. Yesterday, I spoke about 3 examples of biblical characters who made the most of their lockdown. I spoke about Noah and Jonah and the disciples before Pentecost. But I also mentioned that there are negative examples of a lockdown of. You see, those three groups that I mentioned, they made the most of their lockdown. They came out of it with gratitude, with a spirit of prayerfulness, and empowered, imbued with the Holy Spirit, right? But there was another example of a lockdown in the Bible where they didn't quite posture so right. And I only say this because I just did this in my own church Bible study, and we studied the book of Joshua chapter 6. And in Joshua chapter 6, it's a famous chapter about the conquest of Jericho. And usually we think about it from the point of view of the Israelites and how they must have been feeling as the trumpets and the priests and the armed men, and they were walking around not doing what armed men usually do, engaging in war the way the people normally engage in war. But think about it from the other side. Think about it from the point of view of the people in Jericho. I was trying to figure out what to call the people of Jericho. Do we call them Jericans? Do we call them Jerichites? I'm going to settle for Jerrycans. I think Jerrycans is about the right word for the people of Jericho. So you think about it. If you read elsewhere in the Bible, in Deuteronomy 34, for example, Numbers 21, 22, actually it talks about how near the people of Israel were to Jericho, because Jericho was just across the Jordan River in the Promised Land. And at various times during the Israelites, as they moved and as they gathered, the people of Jericho, the Jerrycans, would have seen them. And there was one point where there's a census in Numbers, and it says there were 601,000 men. That may not even include the women and the children, but hundreds of thousands of people. And the people of Jericho, from the high vantage points of the wall, would have seen all the people of Israel as numerous as sands covering the seashore, slowly proceeding. And they would have seen from their vantage point on the high walls of Jericho the miracle where the Jordan parted just to let the people of Israel through. So the people of Jericho, if you go and read Joshua 6 chapter 1, they placed themselves under their own lockdown in the face of a looming threat, because of what they had heard about the Israelites and the God of the Israelites. If you read Joshua 6 verse 1, it says, "No one went out, no one came in. The gates were securely barred." So you think about it. For 7 days, until the walls finally came tumbling down, the people of Jericho would have been peeping out from their windows on the ramparts, from their the little gaps in the wall. They would have been peeping out, and they would have seen this strange, bizarre procession that the Israelites called an army. It wasn't an army. It was a group of armed men that were leading a group of priests who were blowing trumpets and carrying this strange thing. It was the Ark of the Covenant. They're carrying this strange thing with them, and every day they would be doing the same thing over and over and over again. And the people of Jericho must have found that mighty strange indeed, because they would have, remember, they saw the 600,000 plus men of Israel amassing on the other side. They saw the miracle through which they could cross the Jordan, and they must have been wondering what on earth is going on here. A little note about the procession that was going around. Among the entourage that went around was 7 trumpets. Just a little note here, because remember, in this stay-home season, we're thinking a lot about the end times. In the end times, 7 trumpets mean something. You'll be aware that in the book of Revelations, there are 7 seals, out of which the last one will trigger the 7 trumpets, out of which the end of it will mark the start of the 7 bowls of wrath. So we understand this. 7 trumpets means impending judgment. Wrath is about to be unleashed. The people of Jericho had two options. They could have aligned themselves with the Israelites, or they could have stayed away, shied away. They could have gone on the defensive, gone on the offensive. The people of Jericho chose that second option. They locked up their gates, they barred themselves off, and they responded in fear. Rather than declare faith in that God, the God of the Israelites, they chose to respond in fear. Now, there is a direct contrast in this story. The direct contrast is, yes, that's how the people of Jericho responded. But there was one family in Jericho. And we go back to Joshua chapter 2 for this. This is the family of Rahab. And the family of Rahab, if you go and read Joshua chapter 2, it talks about how she let the spies in. And she told them, we have heard of what has happened to the other kings that tried to withstand you. We have seen we have heard of the miracles of the Red Sea, and probably with our own eyes, we saw the miracle of the parting of the Jordan River. And what Rahab said was, please, I believe your God is the true God. Spare my life. Spare the life of my family members. When you come and invade us, spare my family's life. So you see, she didn't choose to respond in the wrong kind of fear. The wrong kind of fear paralyzes you. It puts you in a position where there's no advance being made, where there's no gain to be had. It just paralyzes you. Instead of fear, she chose the right kind of fear, which is fear of the one true God. Another way to declare this, to describe this, is she responded by faith. If you go to Hebrews chapter 11 verse 31, Rahab is listed in that chapter as one of the heroes of faith from the Old Testament, or from the ancients. She's described as the person who, by faith, her family was saved. And you know very well that Rahab became the, if I'm not wrong, the great grandmother of King David. And if you read the first chapter of Matthew, you read the genealogy of Jesus, you'll find that Rahab became the great times 29 grandmother of this man named Jesus. Because in that lockdown situation, when peril surrounded, and it was time to make a choice how to respond, Rahab chose the right path, chose the better way. She chose to respond in fear of the Lord. Unlike the rest of her city, that city under lockdown, Jericho, they chose to just respond in fear. So maybe just a little word in season for us here. As we all are in circuit breaker mode, and we contemplate even this strange weekend where instead of the big celebration in church, now Good Friday, Resurrection Sunday, they become very different this weekend from any other year, where we're at home, we're in quiet contemplation, we're in isolation with our families and no more. And our connection with the people in our church and other Christians is virtual, is distant. It's yes, we can Zoom and yes, we can chat, but it's not quite the same as when we can hug a brother and lay hands to minister on someone. It's going to be different this weekend because of this, we don't say the word lockdown, this circuit breaker that we're in. But just think about it. Take the lesson of Jericho. Will we respond the same as the fears of the world, where all we see is the numbers shooting up, the numbers in Singapore and other countries, where we read the signs and we realize there's things about this virus that we haven't yet learned, and about how it can be asymptomatic and how it can spread X number of meters depending on who's around? Do we argue about, should we wear the masks or not? Do we argue about whose fault it is that things weren't done sooner, or things have been done in this and that way? Do we respond in the fear of the world, or do we take this season to intentionally posture ourselves to discover anew the fear of the Lord? Like Rahab, understand that as the threats surround us and they loom, and that immense things are imminent, do we choose to now discover the fear of the Lord, where we go back to Him and we cry out, mercy, mercy, for God, you show mercy upon those whom you will choose to show mercy? Do we go out to the throne of grace and cry out, grace, O God, grace upon this, your people. This is a season where we can choose how we respond to the lockdown. Can I just encourage you, choose wisely. For those of us who know that we serve a God who is to be feared, but who is also to be worshipped, maybe this is the season that we reset and we come back to Him in full surrender, understanding that worship is what He deserves at this moment. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, but you hear about this God who is mighty to save and who will extend mercy if only you would ask, please drop us a PM, drop us an email at hello@Thirst. I want to tell you more about this God, this man Jesus, who died on Good Friday, that's happening really, really soon, and rose again on Resurrection Sunday, that we might all have life eternal and pardon for the bad things we've done, the sins, the unholiness that we've lived in our life. Thank you. Have a blessed long weekend, however it's going to pan out. And I pray and I hope that this weekend and the weeks to come at home will be a time of refreshing in the Lord. Stay home and stay safe.